Admiral Kethavara stood before the massive holographic display in the command center of the Galactic Council's primary station. The three-dimensional map showed thousands of star systems, trade routes, and territorial boundaries that made up the known galaxy. But there was one section that remained dark, marked only by a red warning zone that stretched across an entire spiral arm. "Human space," she whispered, reading the ancient designation that had puzzled her for decades. The Altarian Navy had trained her to follow orders without question. For 200 years of her life, she had done exactly that. But this particular order bothered her more than any military campaign she had ever fought. No ship was allowed to enter that zone. No probe could be sent. No communication attempts were permitted. The decree was absolute and had been in place for 50,000 years. 50,000 years! That was longer than most civilizations had existed. "Admiral," came a voice behind her. She turned to see Commander Vexen, her second-in-command, approaching. With a datapad in his lower arms while his upper arms remained clasped behind his back in the traditional Altarian military stance. "What is it, Commander?" Kethavara asked, though she did not take her eyes off the Forbidden Zone. "The monthly report from Border Station Gamma 7, ma'am. All quiet along the quarantine line. No attempted breaches, no unusual readings, no contact attempts from within the zone." "Same as always," Kethavara muttered. She finally turned away from the display and looked at her aide. Vexen was young for a commander, barely past his first century, but he was sharp and asked good questions. "Tell me, Commander, what do you know about the humans?" Vexen's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of confusion among his species. "Only what everyone knows, Admiral. They are a primitive species that developed on a single world in the quarantine zone. The Council determined them to be a threat to galactic stability and ordered complete isolation." "But why?" Kethavara pressed. "What makes one primitive species so dangerous that we must avoid an entire section of the galaxy?" "The records state it was for the safety of all civilized species," Vexen replied, but his tone suggested he was reciting from memory rather than understanding. Kethavara nodded slowly. She had heard the same explanation countless times, but it never satisfied her curiosity. In her long career, she had encountered dozens of primitive species. Some were violent, others were peaceful, but none had required such extreme measures. Most were simply monitored until they developed space travel, then gradually introduced to galactic society. Have you ever wondered, Commander, why a species that barely had the ability to leave their own planet would require such extreme isolation? Measures? Vexen shifted uncomfortably. "I assume the Council had good reasons, Admiral." "Assumptions," Kethavara said with a bitter laugh. "The foundation of military doctrine." She walked to her private office attached to the command center. "Come with me, Commander. I want to show you something." Her office was smaller than befitted her rank, but Kethavara preferred efficiency over ceremony. The walls were lined with data storage units containing military histories, tactical analyses, and strategic reports from across the galaxy. She moved to a particular section and pulled out an ancient data crystal. "This," she said, holding up, "the crystal contains every official record about the human quarantine that I have been able to access in 20 years of searching." She inserted the crystal into her personal terminal. The display showed a frustratingly short list of documents. Initial contact report, classified. Threat assessment, classified. Council decision summary, classified. Follow-up analysis, classified. Kethavara's voice grew more frustrated with each entry. "Every single document that might explain why we avoid an entire spiral arm is locked away in the deepest vaults of the Council archives." Vexen studied the display carefully. "Admiral, surely there must be someone who remembers the original reasons. The Council members, the military commanders from that era." "That is what I thought as well," Kethavara replied. "So I began making inquiries. Carefully, of course. I spoke with the eldest Council members, the most senior military officers, even the archivists who maintain the historical records. And what did you discover? Kethavara's expression darkened. No one remembers. Not a single being in the entire galactic government can tell me why we quarantined the humans. They all say the same thing, that their predecessors deemed it absolutely necessary for galactic survival. But the specific reasons have been lost to time. Lost to time. Vexin's voice carried disbelief. Admiral, the galactic archives are the most complete historical record in known space. Nothing is simply lost. Exactly, Kethavara said, pointing at her aide. Which is why I believe the information was deliberately destroyed. The two officers stood in silence for several moments, considering the implications. Finally, Vexin spoke. Admiral, if I may ask, why are you pursuing this line of inquiry? The quarantine order is clear and has been successful for 50 millennia. The humans remain isolated, and the galaxy remains safe from whatever threat they represent. Kethavara returned to her desk and activated another display. This one showed patrol reports from the border stations that monitored the edge of human space. Because, Commander, the reports from our border patrols have been changing over the past few centuries. Small things, easily overlooked, unless you are specifically looking for patterns. She highlighted several entries on the display. Energy, readings that do not match any known natural phenomena. Gravitational anomalies that appear and disappear without explanation. Space distortions that our sensors cannot properly analyze. Could these be natural cosmic events? Vexin suggested. Perhaps, Kethavara admitted. But they all originate from within human space, and they are becoming more frequent and more intense. She switched to another set of data. Moreover, our long-range sensors occasionally detect what appear to be artificial structures within the quarantine zone. Massive constructions that dwarf anything we have ever built. Vexin studied the readings carefully. These energy signatures, Admiral, some of these are larger than the output of entire star systems. Indeed. And that brings me to the real question that keeps me awake during rest periods, Commander. If the humans were primitive 50,000 years ago, what have they become in the time since we isolated them? The question hung in the air like a physical presence. Both officers understood the implications. 50,000 years was enough time for a species to evolve from stone tools to galactic civilization, especially if they were left completely alone to develop without outside interference. Admiral, Vexin said slowly, surely the Council is aware of these readings? I have submitted reports, Kethavara replied. Each one has been acknowledged and filed away without comment. When I requested permission to investigate further, I was told that the quarantine order supersedes all other considerations. She closed the displays and faced her aide directly. But I am not satisfied with that answer, Commander. As a military officer, I have a duty to assess potential threats to galactic security. How can I fulfill that duty when I am forbidden from gathering intelligence about a species that may have advanced far beyond our understanding? Vexin was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful and measured. What are you proposing, Admiral? I am not proposing anything yet, Kethavara replied. But I am considering the possibility that our quarantine order may be based on outdated information. If the humans have advanced significantly, our current policies may no longer be adequate. Or they may be more necessary than ever, Vexin pointed out. True, Kethavara agreed, which is why we need more information. She walked back to the main display showing the galactic map. The red zone of human space seemed to pulse in the holographic projection, though she knew that was just her imagination. There is something else, Commander, something I discovered only recently. She manipulated the controls to zoom in on the quarantine zone. The original boundary was much smaller. Over the centuries, it has been expanded 17 times. Each expansion was authorized by emergency council decree, but the justifications for these expansions have also been classified. The zone is growing? Vexin asked with alarm. The restricted area now encompasses nearly 3 times the space it did originally, and if the pattern continues, the next expansion could affect major trade routes through the Vega sector. This information clearly disturbed Vexin. The Vega sector contained some of the most important commercial worlds in the galaxy. Any disruption to those trade routes would affect billions of beings across dozens of species. Admiral, this information suggests that whatever threat the humans represent may be increasing rather than remaining contained. My thoughts exactly, Kethavara said, which is why I believe it is time to challenge the assumptions that have guided our policy for 50,000 years. She turned away from the display and faced her aide. I want you to quietly assemble a team of our most trusted officers, scientists, engineers, tactical analysts. Tell them we are conducting a theoretical study of long-term quarantine effectiveness. I do not want word of this reaching Council ears until we have something concrete to report. Admiral, Vexin said hesitantly, what you are describing sounds very much like preparation for unauthorized intelligence gathering. I am describing preparation for doing our jobs properly, Commander. The Altarian Navy exists to protect the galaxy from threats. How can we protect against a threat we do not understand? Vexin stood at attention. Understood, Admiral. I will begin assembling the team immediately. As her aide left the office, Kethavara returned to studying the galactic map. The red zone of human space dominated her view, a constant reminder of the galaxy's greatest mystery. Somewhere in that dark region of space lived a species that had been deemed so dangerous that the greatest civilizations in the galaxy had agreed to avoid them completely. But 50,000 years was a long time. Long enough for primitives to become something else entirely. The question that haunted her was simple. What if the quarantine was no longer protecting the galaxy from the humans, but protecting the humans from the galaxy? And if that was the case, what would happen when they finally decided they no longer needed protection? Admiral Kethavara had built her career on asking difficult questions and finding answers that others preferred to ignore. This time, she had a feeling that the answers she found might change everything the galaxy thought it knew about itself. The red zone pulsed in the holographic display, keeping its secrets for now. But not for much longer. 3 months after Admiral Kethavara began her secret investigation, her team had grown to include some of the most brilliant minds in the Altarian Navy. Dr. Zeflon, a xenoarchaeologist with expertise in ancient civilizations, had been recruited, under the cover of studying historical quarantine procedures. Captain Mordak, a veteran explorer who had mapped more unknown systems than any other officer in the fleet, joined as a tactical consultant. The team also included several junior officers skilled in data analysis, sensor technology, and communication systems. They worked in a secured section of the research station orbiting Altair Prime, officially analyzing long-term security protocols. In reality, they were attempting to piece together 50,000 years of deliberately hidden history. Admiral, Dr. Zeflon called from his workstation. I believe I have found something significant. Kethavara hurried over to examine his findings. The xenoarchaeologist had spent weeks digging through the oldest archives, looking for any reference to the human quarantine that might have escaped the systematic purging of records. What have you discovered, Doctor? Zeflon's 6 arms manipulated multiple displays simultaneously, a skill that had made him invaluable in archaeological excavations. I was searching through the personal journals of ancient council members, looking for informal mentions of the human situation. Most of the relevant entries have been deleted, but I found fragments in backup storage systems that were apparently overlooked. He highlighted several text passages on his main screen. These are quotes from Council member Thelnara, who served during the period immediately following the establishment of the quarantine. Kethavara read the fragmented text aloud. The silence is complete now. No word from Explorer Fleet Gamma since they entered the human system. Recommend immediate expansion of quarantine zone. We cannot risk another fleet. She looked up at Zeflon. Explorer Fleet Gamma? I have never heard of this unit. Nor had I, the doctor replied. So I searched for any reference to this fleet in the military archives. He switched to another display showing naval records. Explorer Fleet Gamma was a deep space reconnaissance unit composed of 12 ships and over 3,000 crew members from various species. According to these records, they were dispatched to conduct a comprehensive survey of the human system shortly after first contact. And they never returned? The records indicate they crossed into human space and were never heard from again. But here is the interesting part, Admiral. According to the official reports, Explorer Fleet Gamma was destroyed by a stellar anomaly. But these personal journal entries suggest something very different. Captain Mordak approached their workstation, attracted by the discussion. May I see those records, Doctor? Zeflon transferred the data to a shared display. Mordak studied the information with the practiced eye of someone who had led dozens of exploration missions. These ship configurations, Mordak said slowly. Explorer Fleet Gamma was not a survey mission. Look at the vessel types: heavy cruisers, battle carriers, siege platforms. This was a military fleet designed for planetary conquest. The implications of this discovery settled over the team like a cold weight. Keth Vara felt her assumptions about the human quarantine shifting once again. Are you suggesting, Captain, that 50,000 years ago the galactic government sent a military fleet to subjugate the humans? The evidence certainly points in that direction, Mordak replied. And if these journal fragments are accurate, that entire fleet simply vanished. Dr. Zeflon manipulated his displays to show additional information. There is more, Admiral. I found references to 2 other incidents. Another fleet sent to investigate the disappearance of Explorer Fleet Gamma also vanished. Then a third force, this one composed entirely of automated probe ships, was sent to gather intelligence. And those probes? Complete communications black out the moment they crossed into human space. After that, the quarantine order was established and has remained in place ever since. Kethavara walked to the center of the room, processing this new information. 3 separate attempts to make contact with or investigate the humans had resulted in total loss of contact. No wonder the Ancient Council had decided on complete avoidance. But that raises another question, she said to her team. If the humans were capable of destroying or capturing 3 separate fleets 50,000 years ago, what are they capable of now? Commander Vexen, who had been quietly monitoring the team's progress, spoke up from his position near the communications console. Admiral, I may have some insight into that question. He activated the main display to show real-time sensor data from the border monitoring stations. Over the past week, we have detected unusual energy signatures from within human space. The readings are unlike anything in our databases. The display showed a complex pattern of energy fluctuations that seemed to pulse with mathematical precision. Kethavara studied the data carefully. These readings are massive, she observed. The energy output indicated here exceeds the total power generation of most inhabited systems. Yes, Admiral, Vexin confirmed, and the pattern suggests these are not natural phenomena. The mathematical precision indicates artificial generation. Captain Mordak joined them at the display. Could these be weapons tests? Possibly, Vexin replied. But if so, they represent technology far beyond anything in our current understanding. The scale of these energy signatures suggests the humans have achieved power generation capabilities that we cannot match. Dr. Zeflon looked up from his research station. There is something else you should know. In my analysis of the ancient records, I found references to what the early council members called the silence. The silence? Kethavara asked. According to these fragmentary accounts, it was not just that the exploration fleets stopped communicating. All electromagnetic emissions from human space ceased completely. Radio signals, energy signatures, everything that would indicate an active technological civilization simply vanished. For how long? Mordak asked. According to these records, approximately 3,000 years. During that entire period, human space appeared to be completely dead. No energy signatures, no radio emissions, no signs of spaceflight. It was as if the entire human civilization had simply ceased to exist. Kethvara felt a chill run through her body. And then? Then the emissions began again. But they were different, more advanced, more powerful, and they have been steadily increasing in intensity ever since. The team stood in contemplative silence, each trying to process the implications of these discoveries. Finally, Kethvara spoke. What you are describing suggests that the humans underwent some kind of fundamental transformation during those 3,000 years of silence. They emerged as a completely different civilization. That would be my assessment, Dr. Zeflon agreed. And whatever they became, they have been steadily advancing for the past 47,000 years while remaining completely isolated from galactic society. Commander Vexin approached, the Admiral with a data pad in his hands. Admiral, I have been analyzing the current energy readings in conjunction with historical patterns. If my calculations are correct, the rate of advancement in human technology has been accelerating exponentially. He transferred his analysis to the main display. Based on the energy signatures we can detect, human technological capability appears to double approximately every 500 years. At this rate of advancement, their current level of technology should exceed our own by several orders of magnitude. Several orders of magnitude? Kethvara repeated. Are you certain of these calculations? The mathematical progression is clear, Vexin replied. Of course, we are working with limited data, but the pattern is consistent across thousands of years of observations. Captain Mordak shook his head slowly. If these calculations are accurate, we are not dealing with a primitive species that might pose a threat to galactic stability. We are dealing with a civilization that has advanced far beyond our current understanding. Which brings us back to the fundamental question, Kethvara said. Why do they remain isolated? If they possess technology that surpasses our own, why have they not expanded beyond their quarantine zone? Perhaps they are content with their current territory, suggested Vexin. Or perhaps, Dr. Zeflon said quietly, they are waiting for something. The ominous possibility hung in the air. Kethvara walked back to the main display and studied the current sensor readings from human space. I have made a decision, she announced to her team. We need direct intelligence about the current state of human civilization. Theoretical analysis and historical research can only take us so far. Admiral, Captain Mordak said carefully, are you proposing what I think you are proposing? I am proposing that we send a reconnaissance probe into human space, a single, small, highly advanced probe designed to gather intelligence and return with data about what the humans have become. The team exchanged glances. What the Admiral was suggesting was a direct violation of the quarantine order that had been in place for 50,000 years. The risks are considerable, Mordak pointed out. If the probe is detected, it could be considered an act of aggression. And based on what we now know about human capabilities, the consequences could be severe. The risks of continuing our current policy of ignorance may be even greater, Kethvara replied. We have a responsibility to assess threats to galactic security. How can we fulfill that responsibility when we are forbidden from gathering basics? Intelligence? Dr. Zeflon looked up from his workstation. Admiral, if we are going to attempt this mission, I recommend we use the most advanced stealth technology available. Based on my research, previous contact attempts failed because they were detected by human sensors. What do you suggest, Doctor? A quantum-shielded probe using phase shift technology. It would be virtually undetectable to conventional sensors and could transmit data using quantum entanglement to avoid electromagnetic detection. Commander Vexin consulted his technical specifications. Such a probe would be expensive and time-consuming to build. We would need authorization from the highest levels of command, which we cannot request without revealing the true purpose of our mission. Kethvara said. No, this probe will have to be built using our own resources and classified research. Budgets. Admiral, Mordak said, you are talking about conducting an unauthorized intelligence operation against a species that may possess technology far beyond our own. If this mission fails, it could trigger the very conflict we are trying to prevent. Kethvara nodded grimly. I understand the risks, Captain. But the alternative is to continue stumbling blindly through space, hoping that a civilization powerful enough to make 3 entire fleets disappear will remain content to ignore us forever. She turned to address her entire team. I am not ordering any of you to participate in this mission. What I am proposing goes against direct orders from the Galactic Council. Anyone who wishes to withdraw from this project may do so without consequences. None of the team members moved. Very well, Kethvara said. Then let us begin building our probe. And let us hope that when we finally discover what the humans have become, we are prepared for the answer. 6 months later, Admiral Kethvara stood in the command center of her personal flagship, the Determination, watching as her team made final preparations for the most unauthorized mission in galactic history. The quantum-shielded probe they had, secretly constructed, hung in the ship's main bay, a marvel of engineering that had consumed their entire research budget and required several creative interpretations of military procurement regulations. Final systems check complete, Admiral, reported Dr. Zeflon from his position at the science station. The probe's quantum shielding is functioning perfectly, and all stealth systems are operating within acceptable parameters. Captain Mordak looked up from the tactical display. Admiral, I must once again express my concerns about this mission. We are less than 1 light-year from the quarantine boundary. If we are detected launching an unauthorized probe into human space, the political consequences alone could end all of our careers. Noted, Captain, Kethvara replied calmly. But we have come too far to turn back now. Commander Vexin, what is the status of our quantum communication link? Vexin manipulated his console with practiced efficiency. The quantum entanglement system is stable, Admiral. We will be able to receive data from the probe instantaneously regardless of distance, and the transmission cannot be intercepted or detected by conventional means. Excellent. Dr. Zeflon, how long will the probe need to gather sufficient intelligence about current human capabilities? The xenoarchaeologist consulted his mission parameters. Based on our projections, the probe should be able to complete a comprehensive survey of the human system within 72 hours. It will focus on energy signatures, technological installations, and signs of spacefaring capability. Kethvara nodded and moved to the center of the command center. Her crew had followed her through dozens of campaigns, and she had never asked them to take a risk like this one. But the alternative, remaining ignorant about a potentially galaxy-changing threat, was unacceptable. Very well. Launch the probe. The small craft departed from the Determination without fanfare, its quantum shielding rendering it invisible to all known detection methods. For several minutes, the command crew monitored its progress as it approached the quarantine boundary. Probe is now crossing into human space, Vexin reported. All systems remain nominal. Time to target system? Kethvara asked. Approximately 6 hours at current velocity, Dr. Zeflon replied. The waiting began. Kethvara had commanded enough reconnaissance missions to know that this phase was always the most difficult. Her crew remained at their stations, monitoring the quantum communication link and running constant diagnostics on their equipment. 5 hours and 37 minutes after launch, the first data began arriving. Admiral, Vexin called out with obvious excitement. We are receiving telemetry from the probe. Initial sensor sweeps are extraordinary. What is the probe detecting, Commander? Vexin transferred the incoming data to the main display. What appeared before them defied immediate comprehension. These energy readings cannot be correct, Captain Mordak said, studying the display with disbelief. The probe is indicating power generation on a scale that exceeds the total output of our entire sector. Dr. Zephlon was manipulating his own displays frantically. Admiral, the probe is detecting massive artificial structures throughout the system. These constructions appear to be harvesting energy directly from the system's star. Stellar. Engineering? Kethavara asked. Are you certain? The readings are unmistakable. The humans have constructed some kind of collection array around their star. The scale of this project would require engineering capabilities that we have never encountered. More data continued to stream in from the probe. Each new reading seemed to contradict everything they thought they knew about technological limitations. Admiral, Vexhin said, his voice filled with wonder. The probe is detecting signs of faster-than-light activity throughout the system. Not just basic jump drives like our own technology, but something far more advanced. The energy signatures suggest the humans have achieved instantaneous transportation across interstellar distances. Instantaneous? Kethavara repeated. That is theoretically impossible. Apparently not for the humans, Dr. Zephlon replied grimly. The data continued to pour in for another hour. Each new discovery reinforced the growing realization that humanity had advanced far beyond anything the galactic community had ever achieved. They had not simply developed spaceflight, they had mastered technologies that the galaxy's greatest scientists considered fantasy. Then the probe detected something that changed everything. Admiral, Vexin said, his voice suddenly tense. The probe is being scanned. Scanned? By what? Unknown. The scanning energy is unlike anything in our databases. It appears to be analyzing the probe's quantum shielding. Before anyone could respond, a new voice filled the command center. It spoke in perfect galactic standard, the universal language used for interspecies communication. Attention, Admiral. Kethavara of the Altarian Navy. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Fleet. Your probe has been detected and analyzed. We would like to speak with you. The command crew froze. Somehow, the humans had not only detected their supposedly undetectable probe, but had identified the ship it came from and knew who was commanding it. Kethavara took a deep breath and activated the ship's communication system. This is Admiral Kethavara. How did you detect our probe? Your quantum shielding technology is quite impressive, came the reply. However, we developed countermeasures for similar stealth systems approximately 20,000 years ago. We have been monitoring your probe since it crossed our boundary. 20,000 years ago. The casual way the human mentioned such a vast span of time sent chills through the crew. Are you going to destroy our probe? Kethavara asked. Of course not, Admiral. We have been hoping for contact with the galactic community for quite some time. In fact, we expected this visit much sooner. The expanding energy signatures from our development projects were designed to eventually attract attention. Dr. Zephlon looked up from his console with amazement. Admiral, they wanted us to find them. That is correct, Doctor, the human voice replied, apparently able to monitor their entire conversation. We have been waiting for someone to show enough curiosity to violate the quarantine order. Admiral Kethavara, would you be willing to meet with us in person? Kethavara exchanged glances with her crew. This was far beyond anything they had planned for. Where would such a meeting take place? She asked. We can come to you, if you prefer. Our ships are quite capable of reaching your position quickly. Your ships? Captain Mordak interjected. You mean you can leave your system? Captain Mordak, the human replied, apparently knowing his identity as well. We have been capable of interstellar travel for over 40,000 years. We choose to remain within our designated space out of respect for the galactic quarantine. Order. The implications of this statement were staggering. The humans had possessed advanced spaceflight for longer than most galactic civilizations had existed, but had voluntarily remained isolated. Why? Kethavara asked. Why have you remained quarantined when you clearly possess the technology to go anywhere you choose? That, Admiral, is a conversation better held in person. Are you willing to receive a delegation aboard your ship? Kethavara looked around at her crew. They were all staring at her, waiting for her decision. She was about to make first contact with a species that had been forbidden for 50,000 years, and she was doing it without authorization from any government or military command. "How long would it take for your delegation to reach us?" she asked. "We are already here." The ship's proximity sensors immediately activated, indicating the presence of another vessel. But that was impossible. Their long-range sensors had detected nothing approaching. "Captain Mordak," Kethavara ordered. "What are our sensors reading?" Mordak studied his displays with growing confusion. "Admiral, I am detecting a ship approximately 500 meters off our starboard side, but it was not there 30 seconds ago." "Instantaneous travel," Dr. Zeflon whispered. "They actually achieved instantaneous travel." "This is Captain Chen," the human voice continued. "I am requesting permission to come aboard. My ship's transporters can deliver me directly to your AIAS command center, or we can use conventional docking procedures if you prefer. Transporters, another technology that galactic science considered theoretical at best." "Conventional docking," Kethavara replied quickly. She was not ready to trust alien transportation technology, regardless of how advanced it might be. "Understood. Initiating docking procedures now." The next few minutes passed in tense preparation. Kethavara had her security team prepared to receive unknown visitors while trying to maintain the appearance of diplomatic readiness. When the airlock finally cycled open, she was not sure what to expect. Captain Sarah Chen appeared to be a perfectly ordinary human female, wearing a simple uniform that could have come from any galactic military service. She was accompanied by two other humans who appeared to be advisors or technical specialists. "Admiral Kethavara," Chen said with a respectful nod. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I know this situation is highly irregular." "That is an understatement, Captain Chen. According to galactic law, neither of us should be here right now." Chen smiled, an expression that seemed genuine and friendly. "True. But sometimes laws become outdated, especially when they are based on incomplete information." "What do you mean by incomplete information?" "Admiral, the quarantine that has kept our species apart for 50,000 years was not imposed to protect the galaxy from humanity. It was put in place to protect humanity while we dealt with a threat that endangered all intelligent life in this region of space." Dr. Zeflon stepped forward. "What kind of threat?" Chen's expression became serious. "The kind that your species has never encountered, Doctor, because we have been standing guard to ensure that you never had to. But that situation is about to change." She gestured toward the main display, which still showed the energy readings from human space. "Admiral, everything your probe detected, the stellar engineering, the advanced transportation systems, the massive energy generation, all of it was built for one purpose. We have been preparing for a war that the rest of the galaxy does not even know is coming." Kethavara felt the familiar chill of approaching danger that had served her well throughout her military career. "A war against whom?" "Against an enemy that has been sleeping for 50,000 years, Chen replied. "But they are waking up now, and when they do, they will come for every intelligent species in the galaxy, including yours." The command center fell silent as the crew absorbed this revelation. Finally, Kethavara found her voice. "Captain Chen, I think you had better tell us everything." Captain Sarah Chen moved to the center of the command center, her presence somehow commanding attention despite her unremarkable appearance. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of someone who had seen things that others could barely imagine. "Admiral, before I explain what humanity has been fighting for the past 50,000 years, I need you to understand something about the nature of galactic civilization itself." She gestured toward the star map that still displayed the known galaxy. "Every major species in this galaxy, the Altarians, the Vegan Confederacy, the Centauri Republic, all of them, achieved rapid technological advancement through what they believed was natural scientific development. But it was not natural at all." Dr. Zeflon leaned forward with interest. What do you mean, Captain? Tell me, Doctor, does it not seem remarkable that so many different species evolving on completely different worlds would develop such similar technologies? Faster-than-light drives, energy weapons, artificial intelligence systems, all following remarkably similar design principles? The xenoarchaeologist paused, considering the implications. I had never thought about it that way. But you are correct. The technological convergence among galactic species is statistically improbable. It is improbable because it was not natural evolution. Every major civilization in this galaxy has been guided by an external intelligence that we call the architects. Captain Mordak stepped closer to the discussion. Guided how? Chen activated a small device that projected a three-dimensional image into the center of the room. The image showed what appeared to be a crystalline structure with complex geometric patterns. The architects are an ancient species that predates galactic civilization by millions of years. They discovered that younger species could be manipulated into developing along predictable technological paths by providing subtle guidance at crucial moments in their development. The image shifted to show the crystal structure interfacing with what appeared to be primitive computer systems. A crashed probe here, a partially destroyed artifact there, a few advanced mathematical concepts introduced through seemingly natural discovery. Over time, entire civilizations would develop technologies that followed architect design principles without ever realizing they had been guided. Admiral Kethvara studied the projection carefully. Why would these architects want to guide our development? What do they gain from it? Chen's expression darkened. The architects are parasitic entities that feed on consciousness itself. They allow species to develop to technological maturity, then harvest their entire civilization. Not just their technology or resources, their minds, their creativity, their very essence as thinking beings. The command crew exchanged horrified glances. The concept was almost too alien to comprehend. How many civilizations have been harvested? Vexin asked quietly. Based on our investigations, approximately 300 major species over the past million years. Entire civilizations that simply vanished from existence, leaving behind only empty worlds and abandoned technology. Dr. Zeflon was studying the projection intently. Captain, you said that every major galactic civilization has been influenced by these architects. Are you suggesting that our own technological development has been guided by these entities? I am not suggesting it. Doctor, I am stating it as fact. Your faster-than-light drives, your energy weapons, your communication systems, all of them are based on architect design principles. You have been unknowingly preparing yourselves for harvest. The implications of this revelation hit the crew like a physical blow. Everything they had believed about galactic civilization, about their own technological achievements, had been a carefully orchestrated deception. But if this is true, Kethvara said slowly, why have we not been harvested? Why do galactic civilizations still exist? Chen smiled grimly. Because 50,000 years ago, humanity encountered an architect scout vessel that had been sent to begin our species' technological guidance program. But something went wrong with their plan. She manipulated the projection to show what appeared to be a battle between human ships and something that defied easy description, a vessel that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Instead of accepting the architect guidance, humans did something that no other species had ever done. We fought back, not just against their ships, but against their mental influence. Humans possess a natural resistance to architect consciousness manipulation that we still do not fully understand. Captain Mordak leaned closer to the projection. You defeated them? We destroyed the scout vessel and captured its crew. Under interrogation, we learned about the Architect Harvest program and realized that every other species in the galaxy was being prepared for eventual consumption. The projection shifted to show massive construction projects throughout human space. That is when we made the decision that has defined human civilization for 50,000 years. We chose to become the galaxy's guardians, whether the galaxy wanted our protection or not. The quarantine, Kethvara realized. You requested the quarantine to give yourselves time to prepare. Exactly. We needed to advance our technology, far enough to challenge beings that had been manipulating galactic development for millions of years. We also needed to prevent the architects from discovering that their plan had failed, at least until we were ready to face them. Dr. Zeflon was studying the technical data that accompanied the projection. These construction projects, they are weapons, defense systems primarily. Over the past 50,000 years, we have built a network of installations designed to detect and counter architect technology. We have also been systematically hunting down and eliminating architect agents throughout this region of the galaxy. Agents? Vexin asked. The architects do not work alone. They have created servant species, beings that have been completely dominated by architect consciousness and serve as their tools. Some of these agents have been operating in galactic space for thousands of years, monitoring the development of target species. Chen manipulated the projection to show what appeared to be a galactic map with numerous red indicators scattered throughout known space. These locations represent architect installations and agent activities that we have identified. Many of them are hidden within established galactic civilizations, posing as legitimate research facilities or commercial operations. The scope of the threat was becoming clear to Kethvara and her crew. They were looking at evidence of a galaxy-wide conspiracy that had been operating for longer than recorded history. Captain Chen, Kethvara said, if humanity has been aware of this threat for 50,000 years, why are you revealing this information now? Chen's expression became grave. Because our long-range monitoring systems have detected signs that the architect main force is preparing to return to this region of the galaxy. The harvest phase is about to begin. She modified the projection to show deep space sensor readings that were unlike anything in galactic databases. These energy signatures represent architect vessels emerging from whatever dimension they use for long-distance travel. Based on our analysis, they are approximately 6 months away from reaching the outer edge of galactic space. 6 months, Captain Mordak repeated. That is not much time to prepare. Which is why we needed to make contact with galactic civilization, Chen replied. Humanity alone cannot defeat the architect main force. We need the combined resources of every spacefaring species in the galaxy. Dr. Zeflon looked up from his analysis of the projection data. Captain, based on these readings, the architect force appears to be massive. How many vessels are we talking about? Our best estimate is approximately 10,000 ships, each one capable of destroying entire star systems. They also possess technologies that we have not yet learned to counter effectively. The command center fell silent as the crew contemplated the magnitude of the threat they were facing. What do you need from us? Kethvara asked finally. We need you to return to the Galactic Council and convince them to prepare for war. Every available ship, every defensive installation, every weapon system in the galaxy will be needed for what is coming. The Council will never believe this story, Vexin pointed out. They have spent 50,000 years avoiding humanity. They are not going to suddenly accept that you have been protecting them from an ancient threat. Chen nodded understandingly. We anticipated that problem. We are prepared to provide proof. She activated another device, and suddenly the entire command center was filled with holographic displays showing detailed technical specifications, battle plans, and surveillance data. This is everything we have learned about the architects over 50,000 years of investigation. Their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses. We are sharing this information freely with the hope that galactic civilization will join us in the final battle. Admiral Kethvara moved through the holographic displays, examining the vast amount of data that humanity was offering. The technological details alone represented advances that could transform galactic civilization. Why should we trust you? She asked. How do we know this is not some elaborate deception to gain access to galactic space? Chen smiled sadly. Admiral, If humanity wanted to conquer galactic civilization, we could have done so at any time during the past 40,000 years. Our technology is sufficiently advanced that conventional galactic defenses would be ineffective against us. She gestured toward the displays showing human capabilities. We remain in quarantine because we choose to, not because we are forced to. We have been your guardians, not your enemies. Captain Mordak was studying the tactical displays with professional interest. These architect vessels, they do not appear to follow conventional design principles. They do not, Chen confirmed. Architect technology is based on principles that our science is only beginning to understand. They manipulate space-time itself as a weapon, and their ships can phase in and out of normal reality at will. How do you fight an enemy like that? Dr. Zeflon asked. Very carefully, and with technologies that took us thousands of years to develop, Chen replied. But the most important weapon against the architects is knowledge. Understanding their nature and their methods is the key to developing effective countermeasures. She moved to stand directly in front of Admiral Kethvara. Admiral, in 6 months, this galaxy will face the greatest threat in its history. Humanity has been preparing for this moment for 50,000 years, but we cannot win this war alone. We need every species, every ship, every mind working together to survive what is coming. Kethvara looked around at her crew, seeing her own mixture of fear and determination reflected in their faces. What exactly are you asking us to do, Captain? Return to the Galactic Council. Tell them what you have learned. Convince them to mobilize every available resource for the defense of galactic civilization, and prepare your people for a war unlike anything they have ever imagined. Chen paused, then added quietly, Because if we fail, Admiral, the architects will harvest every thinking being in this galaxy, and 50,000 years of human sacrifice will have been for nothing. 3 weeks after her encounter with Captain Chen, Admiral Kethvara stood before the assembled Galactic Council, facing the most skeptical audience of her career. The Great Chamber on Council Station Alpha contained representatives from 47 different species, each one regarding her with expressions ranging from disbelief to outright hostility. Admiral Kethvara, spoke Council Speaker Morthek, his ancient voice carrying the authority of centuries, you stand accused of violating direct orders, conducting unauthorized contact with a quarantined species, and spreading panic through unsubstantiated claims about galactic security. How do you answer these charges? Kethvara maintained her military bearing despite the gravity of the situation. Honorable Speaker, I answer that everything I have done was in service of galactic defense. The threat I have described is real, imminent, and requires immediate action from all spacefaring civilizations. A ripple of murmurs passed through the chamber. Councillor Vethron of the Vegan Confederacy stood to address her directly. Admiral, you claim that humanity has been our secret protector for 50,000 years, defending us against an ancient threat that we have never detected. Yet you provide no evidence beyond holographic displays that could easily be fabricated. The evidence is available for independent analysis, Kethvara replied. The technical specifications I have shared can be verified by your own scientists. Technical specifications from a species that we have deliberately avoided for millennia, interjected Councillor Zexhai of the Centauri Republic. How convenient that they possess exactly the evidence needed to support their claims. Dr. Zeflon, who had been permitted to attend as an expert witness, stepped forward. Honorable Councillors, I have spent the past 3 weeks analyzing the data provided by the humans. The technological principles they have shared are consistent with archaeological evidence I have found in the oldest galactic ruins. What kind of evidence? Speaker Morthek asked. References to star shepherds and void walkers in the most ancient texts. Descriptions of beings that guided the development of early civilizations. The humans' claims about architect influence are supported by evidence that has existed in our archives for thousands of years, but which we have always dismissed as mythology. Councillor Vethron was not convinced. Even if we accept that this historical evidence exists, it does not prove that an invasion force is approaching. The humans could be using our own legends to justify their emergence from quarantine. Before Kethavara could respond, an aide rushed into the chamber and whispered urgently to Speaker Morthek. The ancient counselor's expression changed dramatically as he listened. "Admiral," Morthek said slowly, "our deep space monitoring stations have just detected massive energy signatures approaching from extragalactic space. The readings match the specifications you provided for architect vessels." The chamber erupted in chaos as counselors began demanding explanations and issuing contradictory orders. Kethavara felt a mixture of vindication and dread as she realized that the invasion she had warned about was beginning. "How long until they reach galactic space?" she called out over the noise. "Approximately 72 hours, came the reply. From the aide, Counselor Zexhai managed to restore some order to the proceedings. "Admiral Kethavara, assuming your warnings are accurate, what do the humans propose we do about this threat?" "They propose a coordinated defense using every available resource in the galaxy," Kethavara replied. "Captain Chen indicated that humanity has been preparing for this moment for 50,000 years, but they cannot win alone." "What would such a defense require?" Speaker Morthek asked. "Complete military cooperation between all galactic civilizations, shared technology, unified command structure, and the integration of human defensive systems with existing galactic fleets." The implications of this proposal sent another wave of discussion through the chamber. Many counselors were clearly uncomfortable with the idea of military cooperation with a species they had avoided for millennia. "There is another issue," Kethavara continued. "According to Captain Chen, architect agents have been operating within galactic civilization for thousands of years. We may have enemies among us already." This statement caused the greatest uproar yet. Accusations and suspicions began flying between different species representatives as they considered the possibility that their own governments might be compromised. Speaker Morthek called for order. "Admiral, are you suggesting that some of our own counselors might be architect agents?" "I am suggesting that we need to be prepared for that possibility. The humans provided techniques for detecting architect influence, but implementing them will require cooperation from all member species." Before the discussion could continue, the chamber's main display activated automatically. Captain Sarah Chen's image appeared, addressing the assembly directly. "Honorable counselors, I apologize for the intrusion, but time is now critically short." Several counselors jumped to their feet, demanding to know how a human vessel had penetrated council station security. Chen continued speaking calmly. "Our monitoring systems indicate that the architect fleet will reach the outer edge of galactic space in 68 hours. They are traveling faster than our initial projections indicated." "Captain Chen," Speaker Morthek said, regaining his composure, "how are you able to communicate with us? This station's security is supposed to be impenetrable." Speaker Morthek, "Human technology has been capable of bypassing galactic security systems for over 30,000 years. We have been monitoring council proceedings for most of recorded history to ensure that architect agents did not gain control of galactic government. The admission that humanity had been secretly observing galactic politics for millennia caused another explosion of outrage." Chen waited for the noise to subside before continuing. "We understand your anger at this revelation, but our surveillance was necessary to protect galactic civilization. On 17 occasions over the past 30,000 years, we have detected and eliminated architect agents who had infiltrated council operations." 17 occasions? Counselor Vethron demanded. "Are you claiming that architect agents have been among us for 30,000 years?" "They have been among you for much longer than that," Chen replied grimly. "The agents we eliminated were only the ones we could detect. There may be others who have learned to hide their nature more effectively." Dr. Zeflon stepped forward. "Captain, can you provide us with the means to detect these agents?" "We can and we will, but first we need your agreement to coordinate our defensive efforts." The Architect main fleet consists of over 10,000 vessels, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. The chamber fell silent as the counselors contemplated the magnitude of the threat they were facing. "What do you need from us?" Speaker Morthek asked. "Every available warship, defense platform, and military installation in the galaxy. We also need permission to deploy our own defensive systems throughout galactic space." "Your own systems?" Counselor Zexhai asked. Chen's image was replaced by a technical display showing massive installations that dwarfed anything in galactic space. "Over the past 50,000 years, we have constructed a network of defensive platforms designed specifically to counter Architect technology. These installations can be deployed rapidly, but we need your cooperation to position them effectively." Captain Mordak, who had been quietly observing the proceedings, spoke up. "Captain Chen, these installations appear to be more powerful than our entire combined fleet. Why do you need our assistance if you possess such advanced technology?" "Because, Captain, the Architects have had millions of years to perfect their harvesting techniques. They will not simply attack your military forces. They will attempt to turn your own populations against you, using consciousness manipulation on a scale we have never encountered." The display shifted to show what appeared to be planets where entire populations had turned into mindless drones. This is what happened to the civilizations that the Architects have harvested in the past. Every thinking being becomes an extension of the Architect collective consciousness. They will use these dominated populations as weapons against any remaining resistance. The horror of this revelation struck the assembly like a physical blow. The idea that their own people could be turned against them was almost too terrible to contemplate. "How do we fight an enemy that can control minds?" Admiral Kethvara asked. "With the technology we have developed over 50,000 years of preparation," Chen replied. "But deploying that technology requires the cooperation of every species in the galaxy." She paused, then continued with grave seriousness. "Honorable counselors, we estimate that you have approximately 12 hours to make your decision. After that, the Architect Advanced Scouts will begin arriving in galactic space, and your opportunity for coordinated defense will be lost." Speaker Morthek looked around the chamber at his fellow counselors. "What guarantees do we have that humanity will not use this crisis to establish dominance over galactic civilization?" Chen's expression softened slightly. Speaker, "If humanity wanted to dominate galactic civilization, we would not need a crisis to justify it. We could have conquered every world in the galaxy centuries ago. We have remained in quarantine because we believe in the right of other species to develop independently." "Then why reveal yourselves now?" Counselor Vetheron asked. "Because the alternative is the complete extinction of intelligent life in this galaxy. We have spent 50,000 years preparing for this moment, but we cannot guarantee victory. If we fail, every species represented in this chamber will cease to exist as thinking beings." The weight of the decision settled over the assembly. They were being asked to trust a species they had feared for millennia, to unite with beings whose technology far exceeded their own, and to prepare for a war against an enemy they barely understood. "Captain Chen," Speaker Morthek said finally, "what exactly do you need us to do?" "First, agree to full military cooperation under unified command. Second, allow us to deploy our defensive systems throughout galactic space. Third, permit us to screen your populations for Architect influence before the invasion begins. And in return, we offer you the knowledge and technology we have accumulated over 50,000 years of preparation. Whether we win or lose this war, the quarantine ends today. Humanity will take its place among galactic civilizations as equals, not as guardians or conquerors." Admiral Kethvara stepped forward. "Honorable counselors, I have seen the evidence of what we face. The choice before us is simple. Unite with humanity against this threat, or face extinction divided." Speaker Morthek called for a formal vote. One by one, the representatives of 47 species voted to end 50,000 years of isolation and join humanity in the greatest battle in galactic history. As the vote concluded, Captain Chen's image reappeared. Thank you for your trust. Human Defense Fleet units are already moving to assist with evacuation of civilian populations from vulnerable worlds. Our defensive installations will be online within 6 hours. She paused, then added quietly, Counselors, the next few days will test everything we believe about ourselves and our civilizations. But if we stand together, we have a chance to preserve the galaxy for future generations. Admiral Kethavara looked around the chamber at the representatives of dozens of species, all united for the first time in galactic history. Whatever happened in the coming battle, she knew that the galaxy would never be the same. The age of quarantine was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And in the darkness between the stars, an ancient enemy was coming home to harvest what they had sown.
Dr. Elena Vasquez walked through the long metal hallway of Kepler Prime Station. Her black shoes made soft clicking sounds on the cold floor. She wore her best blue uniform with the Earth symbol on her shoulder. Today was the most important day in human history, and she knew it. The station was huge. It floated in space between 3 different star systems. Aliens from all over the galaxy came here to make deals and solve problems. Elena had been here many times before, but today felt different. Today, the other species would tell humanity what they had to do. She stopped at a big window and looked out into space. Hundreds of alien ships floated around the station like metal. Fish in a dark ocean. Some ships were long and thin like needles. Others were round like balls. A few looked like nothing she had ever seen before. Each ship belonged to a different alien race. Elena touched the small device in her ear. "This is Elena. I am almost at the council room." A voice came back through the device. It was General Marcus Chun from Earth. "We are watching, Elena, remember? What we talked about, stay calm, be strong." Elena took a deep breath. 50 years ago, humans had met aliens for the first time. It had been the most exciting day ever. Humans thought they would make friends with beings from other worlds. They thought they would learn amazing things and share their own knowledge. At first, things had gone well. The aliens welcomed humans into the Galactic Confederation. This was a group of 847 different alien species. They had been working together for thousands of years. They shared technology and resources. They kept peace across the galaxy. Humans were happy to join. They shared their medical knowledge with aliens who had been sick for centuries. They gave away their farming techniques to worlds where people were hungry. Human artists made beautiful music and paintings that aliens had never seen before. Humans asked for nothing in return except friendship and the chance to learn, but as the years passed, something changed. Humans learned very fast. They took alien technology and made it better. They solved problems that had puzzled aliens for hundreds of years. In just 50 years, humans had advanced more than most species did in 1,000 years. This made the aliens nervous. They started to worry. What if humans became too powerful? What if humans decided to take over the galaxy? The alien leaders began to meet in secret. They made plans. Elena reached the council room doors. They were tall and made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft light. 2 alien guards stood beside the doors. One guard looked like a giant insect with 4 arms. The other guard was covered in scales and had 3 eyes. "Dr. Elena Vasquez from Earth," she said to the guards. "I am here for the council meeting." The insect guard made a buzzing sound. "You may enter, human." The doors opened with a quiet hiss. Elena walked into the biggest room she had ever seen. The ceiling was so high she could barely see it. Around the room, hundreds of alien representatives sat in floating chairs. Each alien looked different from the others. Some aliens were tall and thin like trees. Others were short and round like rocks. Some had fur, some had scales, some had skin that changed colors. A few aliens looked almost human, but with extra arms or strange eyes. There were aliens made of what looked like living metal, and others that seemed to be made of pure energy. Elena walked to the center of the room. There was a small platform there, just big enough for one person to stand on. She climbed onto the platform and looked around at all the alien faces. Staring at her. At the front of the room sat the Council of Five. These were the most powerful alien leaders in the galaxy. In the middle sat Ambassador Thekmar. He was tall and gray with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red. He had been the leader of the Confederation for over 200 years. Thekmar stood up. His voice was deep and loud. Dr. Elena Vasquez of the human species, you have been called here today to receive the final decision of the Galactic Confederation Council regarding your species. Elena stood straight and looked directly at Thekmar. I am listening, Ambassador. Thekmar picked up a crystal tablet and began to read. After careful consideration and much debate, the Council has determined that the human species poses a significant threat to galactic stability. Your rapid technological advancement and unpredictable nature make you dangerous to the established order. Elena felt her heart beating faster, but she kept her face calm. She had expected this, but hearing it still hurt. Thekmar continued. Therefore, the Council has decided that humanity must accept the following conditions. First, you must surrender all quantum computing technology to Confederation oversight. Second, you must stop all faster-than-light research immediately. Third, you must accept Confederation advisors on all human worlds. These advisors will guide your development to ensure you do not become a threat. The room was completely quiet. Elena could hear her own breathing. She looked around at the hundreds of alien faces. Some looked sorry for her. Others looked angry or afraid. A few seemed happy about the decision. Furthermore, Thekmar said, any human world that refuses these conditions will be considered hostile and will face immediate military action. You have 7 standard rotations to comply with these demands. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. 7 days. They were giving humanity 7 days to give up everything that made them special. 7 days to become prisoners in their own worlds. She opened her eyes and looked directly at Thekmar. Ambassador, may I respond to your demands? Thekmar waved one of his 4 hands. You may speak, but the decision is final. There will be no negotiation. Elena took another deep breath. She thought about Earth, about the billions of humans living their lives, working, learning, dreaming of the stars. She thought about human children who would grow up as prisoners if she said yes to these demands. Honored members of the Confederation, Elena said, her voice clear and strong. For 50 years, humanity has been a faithful member of this alliance. We have shared our knowledge freely. We have helped solve problems on hundreds of worlds. We have asked for nothing except the right to exist as equals. Some of the aliens shifted in their seats, Elena continued. Our medical advances have saved millions of alien lives. Our farming techniques have ended hunger on dozens of worlds. Our art and music have brought joy to species across the galaxy. We have been good neighbors and loyal friends. Thekmar made an impatient sound. Your contributions are noted, human. But your rapid advancement threatens the balance we have maintained for millennia. Elena nodded. I understand your fear, Ambassador, but fear is not a good reason to cage an entire species. You are asking us to stop being human. You are asking us to stop learning, stop growing, stop reaching for the stars. An alien with blue skin and tentacles for arms spoke up. Your species advances too quickly. In 50 years you have learned what takes us centuries. And is that not a gift to the galaxy? Elena asked. When we learn something new, we share it. When we solve a problem, we teach others the solution. We do not hoard knowledge like some species do. This caused angry sounds from several aliens. Elena knew she was walking on dangerous ground, but she had to speak the truth. Thekmar raised all 4 of his hands for silence. Enough, the decision is made. Your species will comply or face the consequences. Elena looked around the room one more time. She saw fear in many eyes, fear of change, fear of being left behind, fear of a young species that learned too fast and dreamed too big. Ambassador Thekmer, Elena said slowly. Members of the Confederation, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. The room became completely silent again. Elena felt the weight of history on her shoulders. What she said next would change everything. Humanity has offered you partnership. We have offered friendship. We have shared our gifts freely and asked only for the chance to grow alongside you as equals. But you have chosen fear over friendship. You have chosen control over cooperation. Elena's voice grew stronger. You are not offering us guidance. You are offering us slavery. You are asking us to give up everything that makes us human. This is not acceptable. Angry sounds erupted from around the room. Several aliens stood up and shouted in languages Elena did not understand. Thekmer slammed his hand on his desk. Silence! He roared. Human, you forget your place. You are one species among 847. You cannot stand against us all. Elena looked directly into the exploring red eyes. Ambassador, I want you to remember this moment. I want all of you to remember what I'm about to say. She paused, making sure every alien in the room was listening. We have offered you our hand in friendship, and you have chosen to slap it away. We have shown you our hearts, and you have chosen to fear them. You have 7 solar rotations to reconsider your decision. This is not a negotiation. This is not a plea for mercy. This is a warning. The room exploded in angry shouts. Aliens jumped to their feet. Some pointed at Elena with claws or tentacles. Others made threatening gestures. But Elena stood perfectly still in the center of it all. Thekmer stood up, all 4 arms spread wide. You dare threaten the Confederation? You dare threaten us? Elena's voice cut through the noise like a knife. I threaten no one, Ambassador. I am simply telling you the truth. You have a choice to make. Choose wisely. She turned and began walking toward the door. Behind her, the aliens continued shouting. She heard words like arrogant and dangerous and must be stopped. But she did not turn around. At the door, Elena stopped and looked back one last time. The room was in chaos. Hundreds of aliens were arguing with each other. Some seemed angry at her. Others seemed angry at the Council's decision. A few looked worried about what might happen next. Elena touched the device in her ear. This is Elena. The die is cast. Activate Protocol Lazarus. She walked out of the room and down the long hallway. Behind her, the arguing grew louder. The aliens thought they had won. They thought humanity would bow down and accept slavery rather than fight. They were about to learn how wrong they were. As Elena walked toward her ship, she thought about the message she would send to Earth. 7 days to prepare. 7 days before the galaxy learned what happened when you cornered humanity and gave them no choice but to fight. The aliens had made their decision. Now they would live with the consequences. Elena smiled grimly as she reached her ship. The galaxy was about to discover that there was a big difference between a species that had been spacefaring for thousands of years and a species that had reached the stars. Despite every obstacle in their path, humanity was about to remind the galaxy why they should never underestimate the power of a species with nothing left to lose. General Marcus Chun stood in the war room deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The room was filled with screens showing information from all across human space. Officers moved quickly between workstations. Everyone spoke in quiet, urgent voices. The message from Elena had arrived 2 hours ago. Now the real work began. Marcus was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been preparing for this day for 30 years. He hoped it would never come, but he had always known it might. Humans had learned early that the galaxy was not as friendly as it first appeared. General, called Major Sarah Kim from across the room. All stations are reporting ready? Protocol Lazarus is active, Marcus nodded. Protocol Lazarus was humanity's greatest secret. For 3 decades, human ships had been visiting alien worlds. They came as traders, diplomats, and tourists. But they also came as spies. On every world they visited, they left behind small devices. The aliens never found these devices because they were very well hidden. The devices were connected to each other through quantum entanglement. This meant they could talk to each other instantly, no matter how far apart they were. The aliens did not understand this technology very well. They thought it was impossible to use over long distances. They were wrong. "Show me the network status," Marcus said. The main screen lit up with a map of the galaxy. Thousands of tiny dots appeared, each one representing a hidden device. The dots covered almost every major alien world and space station. They formed a web of connection across the galaxy. "Network is stable, General," reported Lieutenant Wong. "All nodes are responding. We have coverage on 612 Confederation worlds." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "Good, very good. Now activate the manufacturing protocols." In space stations and hidden facilities throughout human territory, machines began to wake up. These were not ordinary machines. They were built using quantum technology that the aliens thought was too dangerous to use. The machines began to work, creating things that would soon change everything. Dr. Sarah Kim walked into the war room. She was a small woman with black hair and bright eyes. She was also the smartest person Marcus had ever met. For the past 5 years, she had been working on Project Prometheus. It was humanity's ultimate weapon, though it did not look like a weapon at all. "General," Sarah said, "Project Prometheus is ready for final activation. But I need to warn you." "Again about the cost." Marcus turned to face her. "Remind me." Sarah took a deep breath. "To activate Prometheus, we need to sacrifice every quantum computer on Earth, all of them. The entire grid will be destroyed in the process. We will lose most of our advanced technology for at least 10 years. But it will work?" Marcus asked. "It will work," Sarah confirmed. "The quantum resurrection matrix will be able to rebuild anything we lose. But the process requires enormous amounts of energy. Earth's quantum grid is the only power source strong enough." Marcus was quiet for a moment. He thought about the billions of people on Earth who depended on quantum technology for everything from medicine to transportation. Losing it would cause great hardship. But the alternative was slavery or death. "Do it," Marcus said. "Activate Project Prometheus." Sarah nodded and left to begin the final preparations. Marcus turned back to the screens. Reports were coming in from all across human space. The evacuation was going well. It had started 3 months ago, disguised as a routine population redistribution program. Slowly, quietly, humans had been moving from the inner worlds to colonies near the edge of the galaxy. Families packed their belongings and said they were looking for new opportunities. Scientists claimed they wanted to study distant stars. Military units said they were conducting training exercises in remote areas. The aliens noticed the movement, but they were not worried. To them, it looked like humans were running away. This made the aliens happy. They thought the humans were finally showing proper fear and respect. "General," called Captain Torres from the communications station, "we are receiving reports from the evacuation fleets. Operation Exodus is 87% complete." "What about the volunteers?" Marcus asked. Captain Torres checked her screens. 2 million volunteers have chosen to stay on Earth and the inner colonies. They understand the risks. Marcus felt a heavy weight in his chest. 2 million people had chosen to stay behind, knowing they might die. They stayed to operate the machinery, to maintain the defenses, and to make sure Project Prometheus would work. They were heroes, every one of them. "Sir," Lieutenant Wong called out, "we are getting reports from Confederation space. Their fleets are mobilizing. It looks like they are preparing for a major military operation." Marcus was not surprised. The aliens had probably expected humanity to surrender immediately after Elena's meeting. When that did not happen, they decided to use force. They were gathering their ships to attack human worlds and force compliance. "How many ships?" Marcus asked. "Intelligence estimates 50,000 warships from across the Confederation," Wong replied. "They are converging on staging areas near human space. 50,000 ships against humanity's fleet of 200. On paper, it was not even a contest. The aliens had overwhelming superiority in numbers, firepower, and technology. Any reasonable military analysis would predict total human defeat within hours, but Marcus was not worried. He knew something the aliens did not know. Humanity's 200 ships were not ordinary warships. They were something entirely new. General, Major Kim reported, the quantum resurrection platforms are online. All ships have been equipped with the new technology. The fleet is ready. Marcus walked to the center of the room where a holographic display showed the solar system. Earth hung in the middle, blue and beautiful. Around it, human ships waited in perfect formation. They were not running away. They were not hiding. They were ready to fight. Sir, Captain Torres said, we are receiving a message from Admiral Jiang Wei aboard the flagship Prometheus Rising. Put him through, Marcus ordered. Admiral Jiang's face appeared on the main screen. He was an older man with kind eyes and a calm voice. He had been Marcus's friend for 20 years. Now he would lead humanity's fleet into the most important battle in their history. Marcus, Jiang said, my people are ready. We understand what we are being asked to do. We are honored to serve. The aliens still think we will surrender, Marcus replied. They still think we are just a young species that will bow down when faced with superior force, Jiang smiled. They are about to learn. That age and experience are not the same thing. How is Project Prometheus? Dr. Kim says it is ready. When you activate the resurrection matrix, every human ship will become something the galaxy has never seen before. And the cost? Jiang asked quietly. Marcus looked around the war room at all the people working to save their species. Dr. Kim confirmed it. We will lose Earth's quantum grid. Billions of people will lose their technology. Life will become much harder. But they will be free, Jiang said. Yes, Marcus agreed. They will be free. Jiang nodded. That is worth any price. We will make sure their sacrifice means something. The connection ended. Marcus looked at the countdown timer on the wall. 5 days remaining until the alien ultimatum expired. 5 days until the galaxy learned what humanity was truly capable of. General, Dr. Kim called from the doorway, you need to see this. Marcus followed her to a smaller room filled with computers and scientific equipment. In the center of the room was a tank filled with strange liquid. Floating in the liquid was what looked like a piece of metal from a spaceship. Watch this, Sarah said. She pressed a button. The piece of metal began to change. It twisted and reshaped itself, growing larger and more complex. Within minutes, it had become a perfect miniature spaceship, complete with weapons and engines. This is quantum resurrection technology, Sarah explained. Any destroyed matter can be rebuilt and improved using quantum templates. But the new version is always better than the original. It learns from what destroyed it and adapts to prevent the same thing from happening again. Marcus stared at the tiny ship. So when our ships are destroyed in battle, they will rebuild themselves, Sarah confirmed. But each time they come back, they will be stronger, faster, and smarter. The aliens think they can win through superior numbers. They do not understand that every ship they destroy will just make our fleet more powerful. How many times can a ship be resurrected? Marcus asked. Sarah smiled. Theoretically, there is no limit. As long as the quantum field remains stable, our ships can be rebuilt forever, and each resurrection makes them more advanced. Marcus felt hope growing in his chest. The aliens think they are facing 200 primitive ships. What are they actually facing? They are facing an evolving fleet that gets stronger every time it loses, Sarah said. They are facing technology that learns and adapts faster than anything in the galaxy. They are facing the one thing the Confederation fears most, which is change, Sarah said simply. Rapid, unstoppable change. Marcus returned to the war room with new confidence. Around him, officers continued their preparations. Ships moved into position. Weapons were tested. Final messages were sent to loved ones. General, Major Kim called out. We are receiving intelligence reports from the Confederation staging areas. Their fleet commanders are confident of easy victory. They expect minimal resistance. Good, Marcus said. Let them think that the longer they underestimate us, the better. On the screens, Marcus could see the alien fleets gathering, like storm clouds. Thousands and thousands of ships all preparing to destroy or enslave humanity. Their commanders probably thought this would be a simple police action. They thought they were dealing with a rebellious child species that needed to be taught a lesson. They had no idea they were about to face something that had never existed before in galactic history. They were about to face a species that had turned their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. Humans had always been young and inexperienced compared to the ancient alien races, but youth meant energy. Inexperience meant they had not learned that some things were impossible. And when humanity was threatened, they did not just fight back. They evolved. "Sir," Lieutenant Wong reported, "final evacuation ships are departing from the inner colonies. In 72 hours, only essential personnel will remain in the combat zone," Marcus nodded. In 3 days, the aliens would arrive expecting to find a defeated, surrendering species. Instead, they would find humanity ready to show the galaxy what happened when you tried to cage the human spirit. "All stations continue preparations," Marcus ordered. "In 72 hours, we will either win our freedom or die trying. Either way, the galaxy will remember what humanity stands for." As the countdown continued, Marcus thought about Elena's words to the Confederation Council. She had warned them, she had given them a choice. They had chosen force over diplomacy, fear over friendship. Now they would learn the price of that choice. The preparations continued through the night. All across human space, people worked with quiet determination. They knew what was coming. They knew the odds. But they also knew that sometimes fighting for freedom was more important than winning. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology. It was their refusal to give up, no matter what the odds. It was their ability to turn every defeat into a lesson, every loss into strength. The aliens thought they were coming to collect tribute from a conquered species. They were actually walking into humanity's greatest trap. Admiral Zhang Wei stood on the bridge of the Prometheus Rising as the alien fleet appeared in the distance. The enemy ships came out of faster-than-light travel like a metal storm. First 10 ships appeared, then 100, then 1,000. The alien fleet kept growing until the space around Earth looked like a field of deadly stars. Zhang counted the enemy ships on his display screen. 53,247 alien warships. Each ship was larger and more powerful than any human vessel. Some alien ships were as big as cities. They carried weapons that could destroy planets. Behind Zhang, his crew worked at their stations. They were calm and quiet, even though they faced impossible odds. Every person on the bridge knew they were about to die. They also knew their deaths would mean something important. "Admiral," called Captain Martinez from the weapons station. "Enemy fleet is taking attack formation. They are positioning for a full assault," Zhang nodded. Through the bridge windows he could see the alien ships spreading out like a giant net. They were surrounding the human fleet completely. There was no escape route. The aliens wanted to make sure no human ship could run away. "Communications," Zhang ordered. "Open a channel to all ships." "It is time." The communication officer pressed buttons on her console. "Channel open, Admiral. All ships are receiving." Zhang picked up the microphone and spoke to his fleet. "Attention, all ships. This is Admiral Zhang. In a few minutes, we will face the largest fleet in galactic history. They outnumber us more than 200 to 1. They have better weapons and stronger shields. By every military calculation, we should surrender." Immediately, Zhang paused and looked around his bridge. His officers were watching him with calm, determined faces. "But we are not here to follow military calculations," Zhang continued. "We are here to show the galaxy what humanity means. We are here to prove that freedom is worth any price. When the history of this day is written, let it be said that humanity stood its ground and fought for what is right." Across the human fleet, 200 ships acknowledged the message. Their crews were ready. They understood that this battle was not about winning or losing. It was about making a statement that would echo across the galaxy for 1,000 years. The alien fleet finished its formation. At the center of the enemy formation was a massive command ship. It was black and shaped like a giant spear. Golden symbols covered its hull. This was the flagship of Supreme Admiral Gorthok, the most feared military commander in the Confederation. "Admiral," the communication officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission from the enemy flagship." "Put it on screen," Zhang ordered. The main screen showed the interior of the alien command ship. Supreme Admiral Gorthok sat on a throne made of crystal and metal. He was enormous, even for his species. His forearms were as thick as tree trunks. His red eyes glowed with anger and pride. "Human Admiral," Gorthok spoke in a voice like grinding. "Stone. I am Supreme Admiral Gorthok of the Confederation Fleet. You are completely surrounded. Your fleet is outnumbered and outgunned. I offer you one final chance to surrender." Zhang stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. "Supreme Admiral, I am Admiral Zhang Wei of the Human Defense Fleet. We received your terms 7 days ago. Our answer has not changed." Gorthok leaned forward on his throne. "Your species is young and foolish. You do not understand the power you face. My fleet has conquered 1,000 worlds. We have destroyed civilizations that were old when your planet was still forming. Surrender now, and some of your people may live as servants." Zhang smiled calmly. "Admiral Gorthok, I want you to remember this conversation in the next few hours. You were warned. You were given every chance to choose a peaceful solution. What happens next is your choice, not ours." The alien admiral made an angry sound. "You dare to threaten me? You dare to threaten the Confederation? Your arrogance will be remembered as the reason your species died today." Perhaps," Zhang replied. "Or perhaps the galaxy will remember this as the day everything changed. You have made your choice, Admiral. Now live with the consequences." Zhang signaled to cut the transmission. The alien's angry face disappeared from the screen. "All stations, prepare for battle," Zhang ordered. "Activate the resurrection matrix." Throughout the human fleet, strange new systems came online. Blue energy began to flow through the ships like blood through veins. The quantum resurrection technology was now active. Every human ship was connected to every other ship through quantum fields that the aliens could not detect or understand. "Enemy fleet is moving to attack positions," reported Captain Martinez. "All alien ships are powering weapons." Zhang watched the tactical display. The alien ships moved with perfect military precision. They had done this many times before. They knew exactly how to destroy a smaller fleet with minimal losses to themselves. "Admiral," the communication officer called. "Dr. Kim is requesting permission to activate Project Prometheus." Zhang thought for a moment. Once Project Prometheus was activated, there would be no going back. Earth's quantum grid would be destroyed forever. Billions of people would lose their advanced technology. Life would become much harder for everyone on Earth, but they would be free. "Permission granted," Zhang said. "Activate Project Prometheus." Far below on Earth's surface, Dr. Sarah Kim pressed a single button. Every quantum computer on the planet immediately began channeling its power into space. The energy flowed through hidden networks and secret pathways. It reached out to every human ship and filled them with power beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The alien fleet attacked. Thousands of energy beams and missiles flew toward the human ships. The space around Earth lit up like a deadly fireworks display. The first wave of alien weapons hit the human fleet with incredible force. Zhang felt the Prometheus rising shake as enemy fire struck its shields. Around him, lights flickered and alarms began to sound. On the tactical display, he watched as human ships began to explode under the massive alien assault. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported the damage control officer. "Shields down to 60%. More alien weapons hit the human fleet. The 200 human ships fought back with everything they had, but they were vastly outnumbered. One by one, human ships began to die. They exploded in bright flashes of light. Their crews lost in the cold darkness of space, Zhang watched his fleet being destroyed and felt sadness in his heart. These were good people dying for the future of their species. Their sacrifice would be remembered forever. "Admiral," Captain Martinez called out. "We have lost 40 ships. Enemy losses are minimal." The alien fleet pressed its attack. More human ships exploded. The space around Earth became filled with wreckage and debris. It looked like the battle would be over in minutes. Then something impossible happened. The wreckage from the destroyed human ships did not drift away like normal debris. Instead, the pieces began to move. They came together and started rebuilding themselves. The quantum resurrection technology was working. Zhang watched in amazement as the destroyed ships reformed before his eyes. But they were not the same ships that had been destroyed. They were bigger. They were stronger. They looked more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. "Admiral," Captain Martinez said in wonder. "The destroyed ships are coming back, but they look completely different." The resurrected ships immediately joined the battle. Their weapons were more powerful than before. Their shields were stronger. They moved faster and fought with deadly precision. The alien fleet suddenly found itself facing an enemy that had learned from being destroyed. Supreme Admiral Gorthok watched from his flagship as the impossible happened before his eyes. He had seen the human ships destroyed. He had counted their wreckage. Now they were fighting again, but they were more dangerous than before. "What is this?" Gorthok roared at his officers. "How are the human ships returning?" "Unknown, Admiral," replied his science officer. "Our sensors detect massive quantum activity. The humans appear to have developed some form of resurrection technology." Gorthok could not believe what he was hearing. Resurrection technology was supposed to be impossible. His own scientists had said it could never work on such a large scale. The battle continued, but now it was different. Every time the aliens destroyed a human ship, it came back stronger than before. The resurrected ships learned from each death. They adapted their shields to resist the weapons that had destroyed them. They modified their tactics to avoid the same mistakes. What had started as 200 human ships became 400, then 600, then 800. Each new generation was more advanced than the last. The human fleet was evolving in real time. "Admiral," Zhang's tactical officer reported, "we are receiving damage reports from the enemy fleet. They are losing ships now." Zhang could hardly believe it. The massive alien fleet was actually taking losses. Ships that had seemed invincible were being destroyed by the evolving human vessels. On his flagship, Supreme Admiral Gorthok was beginning to panic. His fleet still outnumbered the humans, but the numbers were changing rapidly. Worse, his ships were not learning from their defeats. When an alien ship was destroyed, it stayed dead. Only the humans could come back stronger. "All ships intensify the attack," Gorthok ordered. "Destroy the humans before they can adapt further." The alien fleet poured more firepower into the battle. The space around Earth became a storm of energy and explosions. Both sides fought with desperate fury. But the tide of battle was changing. The human ships continued to evolve. They began working together in ways that amazed even their own crews. Ships that had been destroyed and resurrected shared their knowledge instantly through quantum connections. The entire human fleet became like a single organism that learned and adapted with incredible speed. "Admiral," Captain Martinez reported with excitement, "enemy casualties are increasing. We estimate they have lost over 5,000 ships." Zhang felt hope growing in his chest. They were not just surviving the alien attack. They were winning. The impossible was happening before his eyes. But the real surprise was yet to come. As the battle raged, the quantum resurrection technology began spreading beyond the human fleet. Every piece of space debris, every asteroid, every bit of matter in the solar system began responding to the quantum field. Old satellites came back to life and joined the fight. Abandoned space stations rebuilt themselves and began producing new ships. Even pieces of ancient wrecks left over from humanity's early space exploration began reforming into weapons of war. The solar system itself was becoming a weapon. Supreme Admiral Gorthok watched his mighty fleet being torn apart by an enemy that should have been destroyed in the first few minutes of battle. His ships were dying by the hundreds, while the human fleet continued to grow stronger. "Admiral," his communication officer called, "we are receiving urgent messages from across the Confederation. Other alien fleets are reporting similar impossible events. Human technology is spreading across the galaxy." Gorthok felt ice in his veins. If the humans could do this everywhere, then the entire galactic order was about to collapse. The carefully maintained balance of power that had existed for thousands of years was ending. He looked at the tactical display showing his fleet being destroyed by the impossible human technology. His pride and arrogance were being crushed by the reality of facing an enemy that got stronger every time it was hurt. For the first time in his long military career, Supreme Admiral Gorthok gave an order he had never thought he would give. "All ships," he said quietly, "begin retreat formation. We are withdrawing from human space." But it was too late. The human fleet was no longer just defending Earth. It was pursuing the aliens, learning from every battle, growing stronger with every victory. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology. It was their refusal to accept defeat. News of the impossible battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On thousands of alien worlds, beings who had lived for centuries watched their communication screens in shock and disbelief. The humans had not just survived the Confederation's attack. They had won on the capital world of Zentara Prime. Ambassador Thekmer sat in his office staring at the battle reports. His 4 hands shook as he read the numbers. The Confederation's most powerful fleet had been destroyed. Supreme Admiral Gorthok was dead. His flagship had been torn apart by human ships that should not have existed. "Impossible," Thekmer whispered to himself. "This cannot be real." But the reports kept coming in from across the galaxy. The quantum resurrection technology was not limited to the battle at Earth. Everywhere humans had visited, everywhere they had hidden their secret devices, the technology was activating on the trading world of Nexus Station. Human cargo ships that had been destroyed years ago in accidents began rebuilding themselves. The wrecks rose from storage yards and scrap piles, transforming into sleek new vessels that no one had ever seen before on the diplomatic world of Harmony. The small human embassy suddenly erupted with activity. Hidden machines that had been sleeping for decades came to life. They began creating new technology, new ships, new weapons. Within hours, the embassy had become a fortress that the local authorities could not understand or control. The same thing was happening on hundreds of worlds. The Confederation's leaders began to realize the scope of humanity's preparation. For 30 years, humans had been quietly placing their technology throughout the galaxy. They had prepared for this day while pretending to be peaceful traders and diplomats. Thekmer's communication system chimed. A face appeared on his screen. It was Admiral Vextar of the Second Fleet, one of the Confederation's most experienced commanders. "Ambassador," Vextar said urgently, "you must see this. The humans are not just defending themselves, they are attacking." The screen changed to show a star map of the galaxy. Red dots marked human activity. Thekmer watched in horror as the red dots spread like an infection across the map. Human ships were appearing everywhere, moving toward major Confederation worlds. "How many ships?" Thekmer asked. "We cannot count them," Vextar replied. "Every time we destroy one, 2 more appear. Every time we think we have stopped them, they adapt and become stronger." "Ambassador, this technology is beyond anything we have ever seen." Thekmer stood up and walked to his window. Outside, the capital city of the Confederation stretched to the horizon. Millions of beings from hundreds of species lived and worked there. It was the center of galactic civilization, the symbol of order and control that had existed for thousands of years. Now that order was crumbling. "Admiral," Thekmer said slowly, "what are the humans demanding?" "That is the strange part," Vextar replied. "They are not demanding anything. They are not trying to conquer our worlds. They are doing something else entirely. The screen changed again. Now, it showed a Confederation prison world called Sigma 7. This was where the Confederation kept species that had tried to resist their rule. Beings who had refused to accept limits on their technology or their growth were sent there to live in exile, but now the prison world was free. Human ships had arrived and destroyed the guards. The prisoners were being released and given new technology, ships that could travel faster than light, weapons that could defend their worlds. Most importantly, the quantum resurrection technology that would let them survive and learn from any attack. The humans are freeing every oppressed species in the galaxy, Vextar continued. They are sharing their technology with anyone who wants it. They are offering every world the same choice they wanted for themselves. Vecmar felt fear growing in his chest. For thousands of years, the Confederation had maintained control by keeping most species weak and dependent. They allowed some technological advancement, but always under strict limits. They made sure no one species could challenge the established order. Now, the humans were offering everyone unlimited growth and advancement. They were giving away the very technology that made them powerful. It was the most dangerous thing anyone could do to the galactic balance of power. Sir, Vextar said urgently, we are receiving reports from the Third Fleet. They attempted to stop human ships near the Kurgan system. The humans destroyed the entire fleet without losing a single ship. Vecmar closed his eyes. The Third Fleet had been 50 ships strong, all modern and well-armed. If the humans could destroy them without losses, then no Confederation fleet was safe. Admiral, Vecmar said quietly, send a message to all fleet commanders. Order a full retreat from human space. Do not engage human ships under any circumstances. Sir, are you ordering a complete withdrawal? Yes, Vecmar replied. We cannot fight an enemy that gets stronger every time we attack it. We need time to understand what we are facing. But even as Vecmar gave the order, he knew it was too late. The humans were not just fighting the Confederation military. They were changing the fundamental nature of galactic civilization on the agricultural world of Verdant. Farmers who had been forced to use primitive tools for centuries suddenly had access to advanced farming technology. Crops that had taken months to grow now matured in days. Food shortages that had lasted for generations ended overnight on the mining world of Titan's Rest. Workers who had been digging with basic equipment suddenly had machines that could extract resources from solid rock in minutes. Rare metals that had been almost impossible to find became abundant on the research world of Nova Labs. Scientists who had been forbidden from studying certain technologies suddenly had access to quantum computers more powerful than anything the Confederation possessed. Discoveries that should have taken centuries were being made in hours. The human ships did not conquer these worlds. They simply arrived, offered their gifts, and moved on. But they left behind something more dangerous than any army: hope. Species that had accepted their limitations for thousands of years suddenly realized they could do more. Beings who had never questioned the Confederation's rules began to ask why those rules existed. Worlds that had been content with slow, controlled progress suddenly wanted to reach for the stars. On his flagship, Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge, watching the galaxy transform. She was no longer Earth's diplomat. She was now the commander of humanity's response to the Confederation's ultimatum. The ship around her was not the same vessel she had arrived in. It had been destroyed and resurrected so many times that it was now more advanced than anything in the galaxy. Commander, her tactical officer reported, we are receiving surrender requests from 17 Confederation worlds. They want to join the Free Worlds Alliance. Elena nodded. The Free Worlds Alliance was humanity's answer to the Confederation. It was not a government or an empire. It was simply an agreement between species that wanted to grow and advance without limits. Any world could join by agreeing to share their knowledge and help others reach their potential. Accept their requests, Elena said. Send them the standard technology packages and the resurrection protocols. Yes, Commander. Also, we are receiving a priority communication from Ambassador Vecmar. Elena was not surprised. She had been expecting this call for hours. Put him through. Vecmora's face appeared on the main screen. He looked older than Elena remembered. His red eyes were dim with exhaustion and defeat. His four hands trembled as he spoke. Dr. Vasquez, he said formally, I am calling to discuss terms. Ambassador, Elena replied calmly. What terms did you have in mind? The Confederation is prepared to offer humanity full membership with complete technological freedom. We will withdraw all restrictions on your development. We will grant you equal status with the founding species. Elena studied the alien's face. She could see desperation there and fear. The mighty Confederation was finally realizing that they had made a terrible mistake. That is a generous offer, Ambassador, Elena said, but I am afraid it is too late for that. Vecmar leaned forward. What do you mean? Elena gestured to the tactical display behind her. It showed the galaxy-wide spread of human technology and the growing Free Worlds Alliance. Hundreds of species were joining every hour. Ambassador, you had 50 years to offer us partnership. You had 50 years to treat us as equals. Instead, you chose fear over friendship. You chose control over cooperation. When we asked for the right to grow and learn, you tried to put us in a cage. We made mistakes, Vecmar admitted. But surely we can find a solution that works for everyone, Elena shook her head. The solution already exists, Ambassador. Every species in the galaxy now has the same choice we wanted. They can join the Free Worlds Alliance and grow without limits, or they can remain part of the old system that held them back. You are destroying thousands of years of galactic stability, Vecmar said angrily. No, Elena replied firmly. We are destroying thousands of years of galactic stagnation. The stability you speak of was built on keeping most species weak and afraid. That is not stability. That is oppression. Vecmar was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was defeated. What happens to the Confederation? What happens to the species that choose to remain with the old system? Elena's expression softened slightly. Ambassador, we are not your enemies. We never were. Any species that wants to remain with the Confederation can do so. But they cannot stop other species from choosing a different path. And if we try to stop the alliance by force? Elena's voice became hard as steel. Then you will discover that our quantum resurrection technology has no limits. Every attack will make us stronger. Every defeat will teach us new lessons. You cannot win a war against an enemy that learns from every loss. The communication ended. Elena stood alone on her bridge, looking out at the stars. In just a few days, the galaxy had changed forever. The old order was crumbling, replaced by something new and hopeful. But Elena felt no joy in their victory. Too many people had died because the Confederation chose force over friendship. Too many species had suffered under the old system of control and limitation. Commander, her communication officer called. We are receiving reports from across the galaxy. Over 300 species have requested membership in the Free Worlds Alliance. The Confederation is losing members every hour. Elena nodded. The transformation was happening faster than even she had expected. Species that had been held back for millennia were suddenly free to reach their full potential. The galaxy was about to discover what was possible when fear no longer ruled the stars. But she also knew that some beings would never accept the new reality. Some would fight to preserve the old system, even if it meant destroying themselves. The galaxy was entering a new age, but the birth of that age would not be peaceful. The humans had delivered their final message to the galaxy. Now every species would have to choose which future they wanted, the stagnation of control or the chaos of unlimited growth. Elena smiled grimly as she watched the tactical display. The choice had been made. There was no going back now. The galaxy would never be the same. 5 years had passed since the day humanity delivered its final message to the galaxy. Elena Vasquez walked slowly through the gardens of New Geneva on Luna, Earth's moon. Her hair was now completely gray, and she used a walking stick to help her move. The years of stress and responsibility had aged her, but her eyes still held the same determination that had faced down the Confederation Council around her. The lunar city buzzed with life unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human children played with young aliens of dozens of different species. A group of Zephyrian youngsters with feathered wings chased a ball through the air while human kids tried to keep up on the ground. Nearby, a family of rock-like granite beings shared a picnic with a human family. Their children building sandcastles together. The transformation had been more complete than anyone had imagined possible. The old Galactic Confederation had not simply collapsed. It had evolved into something entirely new. The Free Worlds Alliance now included over 6,000 species, most of whom had never even been allowed to develop space travel under the old system. Elena stopped at a bench beside a fountain and sat down to rest. The fountain was a gift from the Aquatic Collective, a group of water-breathing species who had been forced to live in artificial environments for centuries. Now they had the technology to terraform worlds and create new oceans wherever they wanted to live. Elena, a familiar voice called. She turned to see Dr. Sarah Kim approaching with a young reporter. Sarah looked older too, but her eyes still sparkled with the curiosity that had created the quantum resurrection technology. Elena, I would like you to meet Cassara. She's a journalist from the Zephyrian Broadcasting Network. She wanted to ask you some questions about the early days. The young Zephyrian had bright blue feathers and large golden eyes. She carried a small recording device and seemed nervous about meeting the famous human diplomat. Honored Elder Elena, Cassara said in careful English, my people remember the day your ships came to our world. We had been forbidden to fly beyond our atmosphere for 3,000 years. The Confederation said we were too unstable, too aggressive to be trusted with space travel. Elena smiled gently. I remember your world, Cassara. Your people were the first to ask for our help after the Battle of Earth. What would you like to know? Many of our elders still do not understand what happened, the young reporter said. They ask how humanity was able to change everything so quickly. How did you defeat an empire that had ruled for 10,000 years? Elena was quiet, for a moment thinking about how to explain something so complex. Cassara, do you know what the Confederation's greatest strength was? Their military power? The young alien guessed. No, Elena replied. Their greatest strength was that they convinced everyone it was impossible to change things. For thousands of years, they told every species that the galaxy was too big, too old, too set in its ways to be different. They made everyone believe that slow, controlled progress was the only safe way forward. Sarah sat down beside Elena on the bench. The truth was that the Confederation leaders were afraid of change because it might threaten their power. They kept everyone weak not to protect the galaxy but to protect themselves. Cassara activated her recording device. But how did humanity overcome such overwhelming odds? Elena looked up at the Earth hanging in the sky above them. Even from Luna, she could see the lights of the great space elevators that now connected the planet's surface to orbital shipyards. We had something the Confederation had forgotten existed. We had hope. Hope? Cassara asked, confused. Yes. Elena continued. When the Confederation threatened us, we had a choice. We could accept their limitations and live as prisoners, or we could fight for the right to be everything we could become. We chose to fight, not because we knew we would win, but because some things are worth fighting for even if you lose. Elena stood up and walked to the edge of the garden platform. From here, she could see the bustling spaceport where ships from across the galaxy came and went every hour. Some ships were human designs, sleek and fast. Others were alien vessels that looked like living creatures or geometric sculptures. A few were hybrid designs created by multiple species working together. The quantum resurrection technology was important, Elena said, but it was not what really defeated the Confederation. What defeated them was proof that change was possible. When other species saw that the old rules could be broken, they wanted to break them too. Cassara followed Elena to the observation area. My grandmother says the first human ships that came to our world were small and simple. But they offered us something no one had given us in 3,000 years. What was that? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. A choice, Cassara replied. They said we could stay on the ground if we wanted to, or we could learn to fly among the stars. No one had ever told us we had a choice before. Sarah joined them at the observation window. That was always humanity's real message to the galaxy. Not that we were stronger or smarter than anyone else, but that everyone deserved the chance to reach their full potential. Below them in the spaceport, a massive ship was preparing to depart. Elena recognized it as one of the new exploration vessels designed by the Joint Human Crystalline Research Program. The crystalline beings had been silicon-based life forms trapped on dead worlds for millions of years. Now they were heading out to find new worlds where their kind could flourish. Elena, Cassara said softly, some beings say humanity saved the galaxy, others say you destroyed it. What do you think? Elena was quiet for a long time before answering. Cassara, look around you. Do you see destruction or creation? The young Zephyrian looked out at the thriving city, the busy spaceport, the children of a dozen species playing together. I see life, she said. I see possibility. Then you have your answer, Elena replied. A chime sounded through the garden. It was the signal for the daily memorial service. Elena, Sarah, and Cassara joined the crowd of beings walking toward the memorial plaza. This was where humanity remembered the price of freedom. In the center of the plaza stood a simple black wall with names carved into it. These were the humans who had died in the Battle of Earth and the conflicts that followed. Elena found the name she always looked for, Admiral Zhang Wei. His sacrifice had made everything else possible, but the memorial was not just for humans. Surrounding the central wall were stones from hundreds of worlds, each representing species that had lost members in the struggle for freedom. Some had died fighting the old Confederation. Others had been killed by those who refused to accept change. The path to a better galaxy had not been without cost. As Elena stood before the memorial, she felt a small hand take hers. She looked down to see a human child, maybe 6 years old, standing beside her. The child had her father's dark hair and her mother's bright eyes. Are you really Elena? The child asked in wonder. Yes, little one, I am Elena. What is your name? I am Luna. My parents named me after this place because they said this is where everything started. Elena knelt down to be at the child's eye level. Luna is a beautiful name. Do you know why this place is important? The child nodded seriously. My teacher says this is where humans decided to be brave instead of scared. She says that is why I can have friends from other worlds. Elena felt tears in her eyes. Your teacher is very wise. And yes, that is exactly why you can have friends from other worlds. Elena, Luna said with the directness that only children possess, were you really scared when you talked to the mean aliens? Elena smiled through her tears. Yes, Luna, I was very scared. But sometimes being brave does not mean you are not afraid. Sometimes being brave means doing what is right even when you are afraid. Will you tell me the story? Luna asked. Elena looked around the memorial plaza. Other children had gathered, both human and alien. Their parents and guardians stood nearby, some smiling at the scene. Even some adult aliens had moved closer. To listen, Elena sat down on a bench, and the children gathered around her. Luna climbed up to sit beside her. Sarah took out her recording device, knowing that this moment should be preserved. Once upon a time, Elena began, there was a young species called humanity that lived on a small blue planet. They looked up at the stars and dreamed of making friends with whoever they might find there. As Elena told the story, more beings gathered to listen. She spoke of humanity's first contact with the aliens, their joy at joining the galactic community, and their growing disappointment as they realized they were not truly welcome as equals. She told them about the ultimatum, about the impossible choice between freedom and safety. She explained how humanity had prepared in secret, hoping they would never need their hidden weapons but ready to use them if necessary. The aliens thought humans would give up when faced with overwhelming force. Elena continued. But they did not understand that humans had a secret weapon more powerful than any technology. What was it? Luna asked breathlessly. Love, Elena replied. Love for their children, love for their dreams, love for the idea that everyone should be free to become the best version of themselves. That love made them willing to risk everything rather than accept slavery. Elena told them about the battle of Earth, about ships that came back stronger after being destroyed, about technology that spread across the galaxies of hope. She explained how the victory was not won by superior firepower, but by showing others that change was possible. And that, Elena concluded, is how a small species from a little blue planet reminded the galaxy that freedom is always worth fighting for? The children clapped, and even some of the adults wiped tears from their eyes or whatever they use for eyes. Elena looked around at the diverse crowd that had gathered. Species that had been enemies for millennia now stood side by side. Beings who had never been allowed to leave their home systems now explored the galaxy freely. Cassara approached with her recording device. Elena, do you have any regrets about the choice humanity made? Elena stood up and looked out over the lunar city. Ships continued to arrive and depart from the spaceport. The lights of 100 different civilizations twinkled in the darkness of space. In the distance, she could see the construction frameworks of new space habitats being built by cooperative efforts between multiple species. Regrets? Elena repeated thoughtfully. I regret that so many good beings died because their leaders chose fear over hope. I regret that it took a war to convince the galaxy that every species deserves the chance to reach for the stars. She paused and smiled. But I do not regret the choice we made. Look around you, Cassara. 5 years ago, your people were prisoners on a single world. Today, Zephyrian explorers are mapping new star systems on the far side of the galaxy. 5 years ago, the crystalline beings were dying on dead rocks. Today, they are building new worlds where their children can grow and thrive. Elena turned to face the young reporter directly. We gave the galaxy a choice, Cassara. Every species could choose between the safety of limitation and the risk of unlimited potential. Most chose potential. That is not something to regret. As the crowd began to disperse, Elena walked slowly back toward her transport. Sarah walked beside her, and little Luna held her hand. Elena, Luna said, when I grow up, will there be more adventures like the one you had? Elena looked down at the child with her bright, curious eyes. Around them, the galaxy continued its transformation. New species were being discovered every day. Old conflicts were being resolved through cooperation instead of force. The universe was becoming a place where anything was possible. Oh yes, little Luna, Elena said with a smile. There will always be new adventures for brave beings who choose hope over fear. The galaxy is a very big place, and we have only just begun to explore what is possible when everyone is free to dream. As their transport lifted off from the lunar surface, Elena looked back at the memorial plaza. The names carved in stone would remain forever, reminding future generations of the price of freedom. But around that memorial, life continued to flourish and grow. Humanity's final message to the galaxy had been delivered not just in words, but in deeds. They had shown that no empire, no matter how old or powerful, could cage the spirit of those who refused to accept limits on their dreams. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, Elena thought as Earth grew larger in the transport's window, was exactly as it should be.